Welcome back to this special live transmission regarding as the situation between Pakistan and India post Pahalgam incident is unfolding. Pack of lies as far as Indian authorities' statements, their unfounded allegations alleging Pakistan for its involvement in Pahalgam incident is concerned. Pakistan's DGISPR Lt. General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry made an important presser. After that, we saw Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Ishaq Dar, also addressed the Senate. Startling revelations have been made in that very important presser by DGISPR, exposing the state sponsorship of terrorism by India, its intelligence agency RAW, how it has been perpetrating terrorism, cross-border terrorism here in Pakistan. A lot of evidences to that particular fact have been shared by DGISPR, and he has also said that ISPR will be coming up with a detailed presser regarding the situation as it is unfolding between Pakistan and India. In another major development, Pakistan Army has shot down another Indian quadcopter which India had tried to cross the line of control with the intention of surveillance and spying also. A number of other important developments regarding this particular front as they have happened. For that, to discuss all that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Mr. Jauhar Saleem, Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, currently serving as the President of Institute of Regional Studies in Islamabad. Ambassador Saleem, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this special live transmission. We really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to be joined by Lt. General retired Uddin Haider, Senior Analyst. General Haider, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on this special live transmission. We really appreciate that. Ambassador Saleem, let's talk about this particularly important presser by DGISPR. We've also seen, if I remember it correctly, approximately last year, the start of the last year, the former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, Mr. Syed Qazi, also made a very important presser talking about the extrajudicial, extraterritorial killings on the part of Indian authorities, its intelligence agency RAW. Now, once again, irrefutable evidence has been presented by DGISPR Lt. General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry about how India has been perpetrating their nefarious designs, this terrorism here in Pakistan. And on the other side, interestingly, they've been pinpointing fingers towards Pakistan, alleging it of its involvement in whatever incident happens either in IIOJK or in India. How startling these revelations are. And in this particular view, given the fact that we have also seen the entire world, in fact, has seen Indian involvement in terrorist activities on Canadian and the US soil at the same time.
Yeah, this is nothing new. We have seen that over the last many decades, India has been involved, and in fact, if anything, in the last 10 years, these activities, abetting and promoting terrorism in other countries, particularly Pakistan, they have been witnessed very often. You would recall that Ajit Doval, who's been now the National Security Advisor for the last 10-11 years, and he was a form of spy master. He had enunciated the so-called Doval doctrine of offensive defense, whereby he said that they would make Pakistan bleed. And how? And he described that as well. He defined that they would do that by helping the terrorist groups. There were documentaries and of his speeches available on the internet, many of which have been since somehow removed. So that strategy has been in place. We have seen that happening so often. These targeted killings, of course, you know, the world saw that in the UK, in Canada, in the US. There were successful and unsuccessful attempts to target and sort of, you know, and assassinate people who India felt were unfriendly. Now, these terrorist acts, and you know, they had a big controversy. They had a big diplomatic scuffle between Canada and India because of that, and then subsequently between the UK and India, and even the US demonstrated India on those activities. Now, just very recently, this Jaffa Express attack, we have said it very openly. We have irrefutable evidence, that is what DGISPR said, of our regional adversaries, and of course, you know, like India is a regional adversary, being involved in that. And such a sophisticated operation, of course, could not have taken place without foreign involvement. So that is there. And then on this particular incident, India has been sort of, like, have been just kind of, for the last 7 days now we have seen, they have just, this spiral of escalation that they have started, this ladder of escalation, they are not letting go. And in fact, they have plunged the whole region into a grave insecurity. And a very dangerous situation is obtaining. And we are, just today, what happened in India? They had a meeting, Modi had a meeting where Rajnath Singh was there, the defense minister, Ajit Doval was there, the national security advisor, where the chief of defense staff was there, where the 3 services chiefs were there. And out of that, some very incendiary statements have come out. For instance, one statement is that I have given complete operational freedom to our defense forces to decide what? To decide the mode, targets and scope of the punishment. These are the type of words he's using. And he also said that, the type of punishment we will, that we will sort of, our defense forces, that these are the words he used, basically, that will serve to Pakistan would be, I think he's used terms even stronger than exemplary. I mean, so these type of statements at this particular time and point, what are you trying to do? I mean, the situation calls for de-escalation. The situation calls for calmer heads. The situation calls for a dialogue. The situation calls for de-escalation.
The situation, Ambassador Saleem, the situation, I see your point of the interjection, this situation has reached to that particular ebb because of that mindset which is already at play. So why would even they care? They would want it to escalate further by giving such incendiary statements, no?
That is unfortunate, and you see the world is watching it. And India, first of all, they tried to develop a narrative, which, by the way, did not take off. The 100 diplomatic missions heads that they briefed in New Delhi, they were briefed by the Indian Foreign Office. As per the media reports, they came out unconvinced, stating that they haven't really seen any, any solid evidence of Pakistan's involvement. And they said the whole emphasis was on past patterns. And one of the diplomats coming out of the briefing shared with the journalists, he said, we asked them that, okay, so are you going to plunge the whole region into a nuclear war based on just past patterns? So see, and we've seen a lot of stories coming up in international media now questioning India's these just unprecedented measures or actions they have taken, particularly about the Indus Waters Treaty. I mean, that treaty had survived wars. That treaty had survived grave, conflictual situations. And now suddenly, and at the very outset.
That unilateral and unilateral, of course, suspension of which there is no provision in the treaty as well. I'll come back to you for this particular aspect to be discussed in detail further during the transmission. Jenna, Haider, when we talk about India's nefarious designs, today's presser by DGI SPR also speaks volumes when he came up with a lot of concrete, irrefutable evidence against India's authorities and as well as Indian authorities' involvement in cross-border terrorism. I think we have lost the contact with Jenna. Haider will try to re-establish the contact with him. Ambassador Saleem, please go ahead. Please finish your thought.
Yeah, so the point is, you see this statement coming out of the UNSC has called for what? Has called for restraint, for exercising restraint to both countries, of course. China has come up with a very strong statement in that regard. Saudi Arabia, so Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister, British Prime Minister, I mean, so many world leaders who have talked to Modi and they have trying to portray it as a show of support. Okay, any country in the world would condemn terrorism, and Pakistan has done that as well. Any country in the world would sympathize with the victims, and we have done that as well. But at the same time, those countries, in their messages to India, what they have said is that this is the time to exercise restraint. This is the time for level heads. This is the time for diplomacy. And and they have offered, some have offered facilitation, some have offered mediation like Iran. And of course, behind the scenes, this is what we have seen in public view so far. Behind the scenes, so much diplomacy is ongoing. But unfortunately, India doesn't seem to be in a mood to give the diplomacy a chance.
It doesn't clearly seem to be in a mood to give diplomacy a chance, despite so many efforts going on by the regional powers, the major global players as well. We've also seen the United Nations Security Council asking both the parties to exercise maximum restraint. What about the false allegations, the unfounded allegations? Pakistan has also categorically said that we are open to a transparent and a neutral probe. So if Pakistan is given such an offer, do you think India might be willing to give this particular transparent and neutral probe a chance, if not to diplomacy?
I mean, so far they haven't shown any indication of that, which is very unfortunate. Because the thing is, we have to remember that any allegation is just an allegation until and unless you bring some verifiable evidence, and unless there's an independent, unbiased, impartial inquiry or investigation which leads to a certain result, which leads to a certain sort of determination, And if that doesn't really happen, it remains an allegation. But India, unfortunately, what they're trying to say is, and that is, what the message to the world is, because we have accused Pakistan, so you should just believe us.
Ambassador Saleem, don't you think this entire situation, this entire saga, the escalation to which, to a certain point where it has reached, it doesn't only call on the major powers, the global players, the regional powers, only the efforts through diplomacy? The allegations by one state of such serious nature should be talked about, and that nation should be impressed upon that if you have leveled allegations about an independent state, which also happens to be your immediate neighbor, firstly. Secondly, it happens to be also nuclear armed neighbor of yours. You're also nuclear. And if you are leveling such baseless allegations so conveniently, where is that evidence? It is not only the responsibility of Pakistani authorities to ask for any concrete evidence. If India has got that, firstly, at the very first place, they don't have it, and they're not also agreeing to an open and transparent and impartial investigation for that matter. So beyond diplomacy, don't you think it's the responsibility of the major players to go beyond diplomacy, holding that nation which is accusing without any evidence to a certain state, to hold it accountable and ask it or impress upon it to come up with any concrete evidence if it does carry with itself?
Yeah, but that would be diplomacy still. So beyond diplomacy, there is still diplomacy, but that is a diplomacy of a different kind.
That is clearly defamation of a certain country in the Committee of Nations. So there must be a mechanism of accountability.
Yeah, the mechanism is there's of course a range of mechanisms. For instance, in the United Nations Security Council, there could be debate on this, And I think the way things are moving, because see, India doesn't seem to be sort of letting go. They are bent upon sustaining and strengthening this sort of this ladder of escalation, and if that is the case, I think personally that would be important to sort of, to probably to have a discussion in the United Nations Security Council on that, and because what has emerged out of the meeting today, it seems and again this type of messaging where you are calling sort of all the the army chiefs and the defense chief and sort of of course the defense minister and the national security advisor, and then afterwards you're coming up with such incendiary and such provocative statements. That seems to, because see, it then becomes literally a self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you start sort of building this type of media frenzy, once you start building this type of jingoistic hysteria in the country, then people start expecting something from you. And then, then even if you don't want to, then you have to sort of do something to show the people.
I'll come back to this particular point. I seek your pardon for the interjection here. I'll have to go for a quick short break. After this particular break, we'll be resuming the discussion from here. For that, stay tuned. Welcome back to the special live transmission. And before heading for the break, we were in conversation with Ambassador Jawad Saleem, former Foreign Secretary, President, Institute of Regional Studies, joining us in the studio, about as to when a nation state accuses another of its alleged involvement in any terrorist activity, shouldn't it be ideally coming up with a concrete evidence? If it doesn't come, even when it is given an offer of a transparent and a neutral investigation, it doesn't come up with such solid evidence regarding that particular allegation. So shouldn't there be any accountability of that particular nation? Mr. Ambassador Saleem, shouldn't there ideally be any accountability of that particular nation?
I mean, the means of accountability are basically, this multilateral framework that we have, which is the United Nations system, and which includes the United Nations Security Council and the UN General Assembly. And that is where all countries of the world, they express their opinions, and if they feel that sort of, some flagrant violation of international law or international norms has taken place, then of course it's not just debate and discussion, but also there could be some punitive measures. But on a realistic note, I think, and sometimes what countries do is through their statements, public statements as well, they chastise countries involved in such actions. Or if they want to be more discreet, they do it through kind of direct contacts with that country, high-level contacts. So these are the various means that you have.
Okay, I get your point. See your partner. I'll have to go once again to Lieutenant General retired Uddin. Haider is joining us on Skype, senior analyst. General Haider, thank you very much for being with us on this special live transmission. This particular terminology, false flag operation, we've all also seen the kind of allegations when Pulwama happened. Indian authorities came up with finger pointing towards Pakistan, but no concrete evidence to that particular allegation was found later on. Rather, the former governor of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Satyapal Malik, talked of the security lapse on the part of the Indian authorities for that particular incident. This time around, there are questions being asked from within India about Indian government trying to hide its failure of the security lapse in Pahalgam. Your understanding regarding that, and what does this false flag operation mean? Why India under Modi has got that particular pattern, and later on alleging Pakistan for its involvement there?
Well, there is a whole history behind this false flag operations, and using this for election purposes, for vote taking, because in India, Modi's rule, he is against all Dalits, against all minorities, and against Muslims. And every time there is some bashing of Muslims, maybe in Gujarat killings and arson or Delhi riots, well, Hindus like it very much, and they give them lot of votes then. And now, secondly, within a few minutes of this incident, I think they say, even I think when the incident was taking place, 10 miles away in the police station, the FIR, being registered, which shows that this is a pre-planned operation. Secondly, I was listening to a Indian TV. In fact, I was with them on the interview, and they said this time they have given a religious stand to this terrorism by asking before killing, are you Hindu or Muslim? And you were saying sometimes they have taken off their clothes to establish. But the list which we have seen contains 50% of Hindus and 50% of Muslims. So it is not a religious stand. Secondly, they have so far brought down by explosives at least 10 houses of Kashmiris. Now, once the so far investigation is not complete, you do not know who these people are, and you are blasting their houses. What does that mean? That means that you have no evidence. And if you have evidence for blowing those houses that they were terrorists of this particular incident, then they are Kashmiris. They are not Pakistanis. And Kashmiris are against revolt against you for last 75 years because you have occupied their land. and you're not listening to UN resolutions, and you're not listening to the rules given in the partition, the Muslim majority areas will be joining Pakistan. So that means they're their own people. And for and secondly, to just imagine, we have many terrorist incidents like Jafar Express and more uglier than what has happened there, which we condemn. Pakistan does not take any arbitrary action. And what has Indus Basin Water Treaty got to do with this? That they have been, for last few years, they have been saying that, we will like to renegotiate Indus Basin Water Treaty and what not. And making
this is just an excuse, this Pahalgam incident. This is just an excuse because as Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Haider in the Senate has also alluded to this particular fact. Post Pulwama, Indian authorities went on revoking Article 370, and now post Pahalgam, they have suspended unilaterally this Indus Water Treaty.
Yes, but of course they cannot do it under the national law. And Pakistan cannot tolerate this, and Pakistan has made it ample clear, our political and military leadership, this is crossing a red line. And if you try to fiddle with that water, which 3 rivers belong to us, then of course we have the right to take strongest action. And I was seeing a clip of Mr. Sohrawardy, our erstwhile Prime Minister. He said we'd like to fight and go down rather than die of thirst. That means if you stop our water. But they dare not stop our water. If they make a dam illegally, we have very precise missiles in which we don't have to use nuclear weapons. We can use conventional weapons to destroy those dams so that water is not stopped. So India should be quite clear on this, that this is a red line. Pakistan will never, ever, ever accept this. This they have to understand. And secondly,
please go ahead. Finish your thought.
The truth will come out. The truth will come out behind this. Already there are whispers in India, and already people are saying they are doubting Modi's intentions, and they know this is his pattern to murder people in Gujarat and then ask for votes. And he has succeeded in this many times. So he is using the same policy and making excuses. And out of this, Pulwama incident earlier, and now this Pahalgam. And secondly,
there are a number of other points I'll discuss with you, General Haider. Let me quickly take Ambassador Saleem's view on this. What other option, when this particular suspension of Indus Water Treaty is being deemed as an act of war, as far as Pakistan's authorities are concerned, Pakistani side is concerned. So what other options internationally Pakistan does carry with itself? How to impress upon India that it can't do it unilaterally with this treaty?
There's a range of technical and legal options available. Within the treaty itself, there's several dispute resolution mechanisms which could be invoked in this particular instance as well. That is one. Then secondly, Pakistan can go to ICJ, the International Court of Justice, and I think Pakistan would have a very strong case there. And ICJ's ruling on this, a definitive ruling, that is sort of, that will be based on international law. Right. Then thirdly, because this could be a case where there could be a criminal intent involved as well. So perhaps ICC could be another avenue. Then the United Nations Security Council, where Pakistan is present right now as a non-permanent member. Yeah. There you could take this matter and, because this is such a serious matter, there could be, and we could basically call for a resolution, a binding resolution that is, because, given the fact that this can lead to an all-out war, the situation that India has created. So there, and of course, then the other options are the diplomatic options bilaterally with other countries so that they impress upon India. So there is a range of options, it's not just what is India is talking about. That is, of course, last resort when you come to sort of, use of force and sort of, the spectrum of available means. That is the last resort.
Right. Mr. Jauhar Saleem, former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, currently serving as President of Institute of Regional Studies. Thank you very much for taking time out for this particular segment of this special transmission. We really appreciate that. General Haider, there is another development that Indian authorities are arming Hindus in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. How do you look at that? And threatening that is to the peace in the region.
I beg your pardon. Please say again.
Weaponizing and arming the Hindus in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
I mean, there are public statements that will change the ethnic composition of Kashmir. And before that, nobody could buy property in occupied Kashmir. Nobody could settle there. But now, after revoking those two articles in their constitution, they're encouraging Hindus to go and buy land and settle there. And they're saying we are going to marry their girls and change our complexion and change our genes and what nonsense they're talking. So this is going on, and they're not supposed to change as per the United Nations Security Council resolutions. It says they should not be changing, anything there before a plebiscite. So this is all legal election they are taking. But Ambassador Saleem Saab was saying that we have many actions to be taken before we can use, force. But the fact is, India is following on the lines of Israel. It doesn't listen to any United Nations resolutions. It doesn't take world public opinion or the public opinion of its own country. And it has got bad relations with Sri Lanka. They were, supporting Tamils. They have got bad history with Bhutan, with Nepal, which is a Hindu kingdom, and with China and with Pakistan. So, and now about terrorism, they are telling us, and what was their people doing and killing people in Canada? This has been established. So it is a rogue country and it is a terrorist country. The world should know this by now.
So the world should know it by now. That is a rogue country. It is a terrorist country. It is involved in state sponsorship of terrorism, the cross-border terrorism through its intelligence agency RAW. General Haider, I'll come back to you. What needs to be done when it comes to not realization, when it comes to the role and the responsibility of the international community, particularly the major powers, what needs to be done in order to hold such a rogue and a terrorist state accountable? For now, we are honored to be joined by a famous celebrity, a prominent actress, Ms. Bushra Ansari. Ms. Bushra, thank you very much for being with us on this special live transmission. Really appreciate that. As far as the show business fraternity is concerned, this escalation, the tensions rising between Pakistan and India owing to the unfounded allegations on the part of the Indian authorities and the kind of jingoistic behavior on the part of the Indian media. Of course, we have also seen reports that there was one movie of Pakistan actress Fawad Khan which was upcoming, that was slated to be released on 9th of May, that would not be released because this Federation of Western India Cine employees has come up with a statement. Let me quote that we reiterate our directive originally issued on February 18, 2019, calling for complete non-cooperation of with all Pakistani artists, singers and technicians within the Indian film and entertainment industry, unquote. How do you look at that?
Actually, from the beginning, the relationship between India and Pakistan and subcontinent has been always a love-hate relationship. And I mean, the love word, I can own myself, I mean, for our country, because we've been always considerate most of the time. Our President Musharraf, if you remember, he came up and he stood up and he just went to shake hands with him. And mostly whenever, because I have a lot of friends in India, a lot of fans otherwise, but whenever we talk, they are all starving to meet us and they're starving to come to Pakistan. But mostly the arrogance India and Indian government shows, it has a long history from the beginning. But now from last these years when Mr. Modi has come, Mr. Modi has decided to spread hatred and he is on his job and he is doing it very well. So this terrorism thing on and off, whenever it happens, they quickly in 2 minutes they just blame Pakistan, that as if they prove something. And this show business thing, I think this is something very minor for us, but in other ways, when they appreciate our big artists and they like Mr. Fateh Khan, Mehdi Saab, and then younger generation also. At that time, I always appreciate them because they're a big country, they have a lot of artists, but they know the ground reality that we have, whatever artists, if we have only 25 artists, they have a lot of weight in their talent. So they accept it and they call them for work. And whenever something happens like this, a small thing, they just attack on this artist fraternity, first of all. And they waste their own money because the producers who invest money on their films and Pakistani artists, they outrightly reject them and they make them, they're at loss. But it's very sad. It's not so easy to attack each other and blame each other and say bad things about each other. Because seriously, whenever we meet them outside country, India, Pakistan we meet them in Canada, London, America, anywhere. I don't see any hatred in general public. Now they have just aggravated this issue, like as if they have proof. As if, and small kids and a lot of people, even their own armies persons I've seen, they're telling that this is all drama, because 400 miles are not so short distance. How can they come? How can they come from Pakistan? So they planted everything themselves.
Okay, so Ms. Bushra, I seek your pardon for the injection over here. You are of the view there is the range of talent when it comes to the Pakistani artists, and that's why Indians want them to work with them as well. Later on, whenever such an incident happens, this particular aspect is hit very badly as far as the Indian perspective is concerned, and this particular federation also. But an Indian court lifted the ban. There was a ban by this federation back in 2023. The Indian High Court lifted that ban. Now, don't you think these federations have any sort of respect for whatever their judicial system or their courts actually talk about or give the verdict on?
I think the smallest word I can use is insecurity. It's insecurity in Indian government. I don't find this insecurity in the producers, the directors, the artists, the actors. Seriously, I'm telling you. I've been offered a role from this Mr. He was a big director who's Rani Mukherjee's father-in-law. And I was almost done with them, and I was about to with Akshay Kumar. Then Pulwama happened. That was again a drama. And they just tell us that we don't want you. Then they call us. So I think they confuse themselves how to attack and where to attack and how to blame and just make a fuss. And now they are just killing the...
So what's the spirit behind this particular collaboration? If the artists from both the countries keep on collaborating, keep on producing the work together, and there happens to be a continuous exchange of artists and singers and technicians from both the sides, so what's the spirit and what could be the possible advantages of that?
I can't suggest anything because it's in between the government. If you remember, me and my sister, we made a song about peace song, and it was like for the neighbor women, and they were making it was in Punjabi, and it was a big hit. And I never realized that it's going to hit so much. It was before Modi's election, and I can't tell you, it broke the internet because the thought was so beautiful. My eldest sister, who's a writer, Neelam Ahmed Rashid, she wrote it, and we performed it, me and Asma. And that song showed that 99% Indians were gone mad. They were taking us on live television, their national television, as peace activists. And me and my sister, we were just shocked. Oh, wow, this kind of reaction we never thought. So between artists and between creative people, I don't find this bitterness. This is all government.
Your point. I get you. I get your point. I get your point. When it comes to storytelling, Bollywood, it's known the world over. We have in the recent past seen that this Bharatiya Janata Party, under the leadership of Narendra Modi, has used this particular tool to infiltrate that very negative propaganda against Pakistan in a number of movies that I can enlist over here. That makes me curious to understand as to what Pakistani artists, Pakistani producers, or the Pakistani cinema is doing on this particular front in order to portray the truth and counter that very false propaganda through cinema, which Bollywood, under the supervision, the nefarious supervision of Narendra Modi, is doing in the recent past.
You have to keep this in mind that they have a big market. We are just a nursery students in terms of film. So our market is so small, we cannot, attack on them because they have a lot of big market things, and they are making thousands of films. And then from thousands of films, if they do some film against Pakistan in 10 even, we can't even make one film because we have a small market. And that is the reason that we could never fight through this cinema thing. And we have done a lot, and some dramas, but that's not
your point. Unfortunately, we are short of time. It was really a pleasure talking to you. Perhaps we'll get to interact with you some other time. Miss Bushra Ansari, famous celebrity, prominent actress of Pakistan, thank you very much for taking time out for this special live transmission. We really appreciate that. Lt.Gen retired Uddin, Haider, senior analyst, also was joining us on Skype. General Haider, unfortunately, I'll have to wrap this particular segment of this special live transmission right now over here. Thank you very much for taking time out. With that, we come to the end of this particular segment of this special live transmission. After this, you'll be able to watch the live news bulletin, and this particular transmission is going to continue after that. For that, stay tuned.